So I did this sketch at work. The reason it is so very unfinished is because I was doing it at work on my break, and Flounder, the work cat, decided that he really wanted to rub his face against my hands and I couldn't finish it. I thought maybe I would try and use the gouache to just like improv, but I ended up not liking what I did, and I did my second sketch. This ends up being more of a mock-up. I did my second sketch more completed. So this is just me trying to figure out how to do the skin and the hair and get the snail shell how I want it, and none of it really works out, and that's okay. I'm not good enough with gouache to actually improv with it at this point, and I should have known that, but I wanted to try anyway. Mostly I just really didn't want to put in the effort of actually putting in the effort, and made things harder for myself in the end anyway, so, you know. Worth? Maybe. If nothing else, it got me to a result I'm much happier with, so maybe it was worth it. But this bit was never finished, so maybe it wasn't. Who knows? This sketch is a bit more filled out, it's got more to it, it is also a bit more thought out, and I had more plans going into it, so that's good. Improv can work when you're still exhausted from your physical job and tired and you want to sleep, less likely to. So I actually did mix colors for this one. A lot of the time I'm really lazy and I just go with what is in the palette, but I knew I didn't like what was in the palette, especially after doing the last one. That did help with that, but I also really didn't want to mix colors because I was tired, but I did it, so I'm proud of myself. I knew I wanted the snail shell in sort of pastels, peaches, and pinks. Pastel peaches and pinks, not like pastels and those colors. I mixed multiple colors for the skin tone, not just like used multiple colors, but mixed multiple colors. And I made sure to kind of have a light source. It's pretty much my standard light source up and to the left. I need to work on that, and I will in other places, but clearly not in this piece. So I kind of wanted the neck to fade into orange, and I wanted to go a brighter orange for it than I ended up going, but I think I made the right choice. I chose not to try and blend this one very much, but to use more the distinct strokes as a style, as opposed to trying to blend the stuff in the snail shell or the wings very much. That really vivid red is not a color I made. That came straight from the palette, and I love it. I really like reds, and that really vivid red is very nice. I liked it a lot. I did paint the red of the ribbon while the neck was still kind of wet, so the paint spread. I couldn't be bothered to do much to fix it. This was a very quick piece done by a very tired me. The fact that I did it twice is a minor miracle. I just really disliked the first image. I do a lot of shades in this snail cap, and I do end up quite liking it, so even though it took a long time, well, long for this piece, not long overall. Even though it took more time than I think maybe even the wings, it was still something I found worth it. I don't think it actually took longer than the wings, but I think maybe because I put more colors into it, I felt like it did. It doesn't matter, it was definitely easier than the wings, and maybe it looks better in the end than the wings do. I don't know, wings are enemy number 50 kajillion. I have quite a few enemies. So I started with this brown stripe, or brown segment of the wings, realized I didn't like the brown, but couldn't go over it at the time. I had to wait for it to dry, so I did more stuff other places, and then I went over it with black. I was originally thinking of like brown wings, obviously that's why I started with brown, but I decided I wanted to go with something more contrasty given the, you know, pastel lighter nature of the face and the snail shell. So I decided I wanted to do something darker and a bit more vibrant. I did add a few more tones and different shades and stuff to the snail shell to give it a less muddy look than it had at that point, but yeah, I started on the wings with blues, and I will keep working on it in mostly blues. The horned screamer is a bird that exists. It's a pretty weird bird, but the bone spurs it has on the tips of its wings are something I was obviously inspired by. The horned screamer is not blue, it's just black, but I like the idea of the spurs, and I don't know where this ribbon goes at all. I take another blue here to do the secondaries. I can never remember what the parts of the wings are called. I pull up a diagram of the wing every time I frickin' paint one or draw one or do anything with wings. I pull up a diagram of the layout of the feathers of the wing, and I can still never remember. It drives me nuts. And then lots of different kinds of birds have different kinds of layouts, which is just even better and helps my memory so much. Anyway, I decided that the further down the wing it went, the darker the blues were gonna be, in part to make my job easier at distinguishing between the layers of feathers, and also just because I wanted something gradienty. I was in a gradient mood. I am not now and have never been good at drawing feathers. I chose to use the style I had started with the shell to do the feathers with, to just like use these blunt, big chunks of color to make the feathers instead of trying to actually do realistic feathers. More realistic feathers are beyond me, and mediums I'm comfortable with, let alone in gouache. I threw some red on those bone spurs because horned screamers do attack each other and sometimes people with those bone spurs, and I was feeling a little bit vicious in that moment. Then I started thinking about ravens and how even though their wings are black, they sometimes have like shades to them of bluish and purplish, greenish, so I started putting some greens and eventually I will put some purples into these wings, but they remain mostly blue. I do think it looks a lot better than it would have if I hadn't added the greens and the purples. I think it would have looked very one note, and adding these greens and purples. Adding these greens and the purples I will add later really helped with breaking up the block of blue. Having the black there helped too, that black segment, and it also I think made me a bit more daring with what I was doing because I was willing to be like, there's already a big box of black there, we can do something weird now. These wings stay about this way, but I tidy them up a bit later. I do add feathers there that end up looking kind of puffy and fluffy, even though they're not really supposed to, just because of the way I use the brush and style. It doesn't strictly look bad, it just doesn't quite look how I intended. I went back after I needed to wait for the wings to dry and did some stuff on the face, tried to make that ear a bit more ear-like, didn't super work. One thing I like about thicker paints is you can actually go back and lighten things up. It doesn't work perfectly, but you can add light colors to fix a place where you went dark where you shouldn't have. It's nice. I had forgotten that I'd mixed a little bit of gradient for that ribbon, but I did, and it isn't very noticeable, but I felt happy about it. At that point, the wings had basically started to dry, and I went in and did more of my dots. I started my dots with some of almost exactly the same color and was like, why don't they show? And I was like, because you're being silly. Go mix another color. There are also feathers at the shoulder joint of the wing that I am using the same method for. They're not supposed to look the same. They don't have the same texture on real birds, but I used the same method to make the feathers, so I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I'm just adding darker colors here to finish up this stuff. I gave them a little dimple because I wanted to. I think I go through and try and add a little more to the shell here and fix the ear a little bit, kind of. There's nothing really wrong with the ear, but it didn't look much like an ear to me, and I kind of got stuck on it. I added shadows to the face earlier. I tried adding some highlights to the face to see if that would do anything. It didn't really. This is the part where I get into the little cleanup details, so it's a lot of me going through with just a very small brush and adding to the lips, cleaning up those feathers a bit, making sure they're defined in a way that isn't a mess, and just a few other little things. I wouldn't call any part of this part of the process special. I help some things gradient a bit better. I add a few other colors and shades to that snail shell, and that's really about it. I do like that red though. In retrospect, I wish I'd added that coral pink in more places, but whatever. This is the final piece. This is what I ended up with. It's alright. I don't love it, but given the fact that I was exhausted, didn't want to do it, and was just overall not in the mood, I think it's pretty okay.